common, some of that with Grimsley's common.
Yeah, I mean, and those are all really, really good ideas. And I think what this is striking at is the fact that we've got a much, much bigger problem than just about whether we've got career politicians or how that's happened. All votes at 16, that's right. And I think also things have changed so dramatically, even in the 8 years that I've been here. I mean, I went on Twitter on Friday for the first time, kind of joined the 21st century finally. But I know. But I think the way that we communicate and the way that we do things and the way that we campaign on different issues are actually something that we really need to look at. Your issue about the difference between the political parties, I think at one level that is maybe right, but I think it's more the fact that we all look very similar. When I was at the UK Youth Parliament on Friday, it was really evident that the ethnic mix and the gender mix was like nothing we have. You know, I mean, we're largely male and white in the House of Commons, so we don't really reflect the people that we represent. And so really we need to look at much, much wider issues than just about the political parties, because actually I think what politics is coming down to now is much more issues based rather than sort of ideologically based, and I think we need to look at that as well.
Nadine, I mean, do you think about how you want to do this? I mean, do you think it's external for people to see the same old faces turning in year out?
No, I think you should have recall. I think Zach Goldsmith has been championing this issue. I think local people feeling that they can change their member of parliament is a good thing. I think having people from varied backgrounds, experience outside this place, and it doesn't have to be just sort of business or being an entrepreneur or an engineer. People who've worked in social work and teaching, whatever profession, coming into this place is a really, really positive thing to have. And so, we can make real improvements. But I agree with Natasha in the sense that if you think you're working on and doing a good job, I mean, to sort of have that cut short just because people think, well, change is a good thing. I don't think people will necessarily get a better representative in this place if that happens.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. When we were going through House of Lords reform, because you mentioned the House of Lords, where famously the average age is 70, and where we're appointed for life. I mean, even if you commit criminal offence, you can't be sacked from the House of Lords. That's the situation we're in because we didn't sort of support reform. It was really interesting during that process of looking at the bill and soliciting comments from people. And when you talk to I think I'm right in saying in the polls, I don't know if you can remember, Nadine, what some of these were like, but what the public seemed to be saying was that they didn't want elected House of Lords because it would be just like the Commons, and that's a bit of an indictment. They just didn't want it to be like the Commons. What they wanted were people who were independent-minded, who had experience of different kinds of workplaces, and who had current, up-to-date practice and experience, but they wanted them to be accountable. And so we've got a little bit of some of those things, but not enough to compensate for not being accountable. So it goes back to the point I think that Natasha was sort of reiterating, which is that the whole system needs to be rethought, and that's such a big thought that people just can't get their heads around it, I think.
Yes, who else? Go on then. Sorry, I did say you as well, didn't I? But do you first? Just because it's next to you.
I was just wondering, I personally think we need more young people in politics, but in fact, good we have the UK Parliament. But I think the real problem starts in education. Goes back to the point. I know some 18 and 20-year-olds that actually don't know who David Cameron is, and I find that really, really wow, because that's why we need politics and education. I'm 14 years old now, and I'm year 10 now. When in year 8, I've only learned about politics once.
Okay.
That's all. I just want to say that.
Thank you very much. We are actually going to have to let Nadine go because he's got to go off and do something. But can we just thank him for joining? Yes, we'll come back.
teachers in Bristol. I think it's quite interesting to tie all this about our educational reform, and I'm sorry, I've had the mispleasure of teaching citizenship in a rural school in Bristol. And I'd be interested to know how many people here are from within 20 miles of London. And also consider what it's like for pupils in rural Bristol who might not even go to Bristol city centre, let alone be engaged in London. And it's very London-centric. I think we forget that I used to live here and this was my life when I was here, but now I understand bigger picture.
Sorry, what's London-centric? Politics?
Politics.
Right.
This whole thing, everyone that is here, it is London-centric. We have a mix of ethnicities because it is London-centric. And I know that in the House of Lords and Parliament, we're not representative of general society. But what we do is, with citizenship education, they get to about year 9, 13, 14, and suddenly we're going, this is Labour, Conservative, and Lib Dems. But they have no idea of their local elections, and we're suddenly trying to do things on a larger scale. We don't give them control of the schools. Education is something that happens to children. We don't give them any choice. Some of the best schools with good citizenship allow local elections within the school. Most schools don't. So actually we need to have educational reform from primary school to understand how politics works, to give them rights, to make some subtle changes, but most schools don't do that. So it's our education system that's failing our future politicians.
Okay, thank you.
I represent a very rural constituency in North East Derbyshire. That's why I've got 54 schools. I mean, that's a vast number. And some of those schools are so tiny that they've got 24 pupils, and that's from the whole primary. It's very, very rural. Every single one of those schools has a school council. I go to every single one of those schools, and I take my duty to go and promote politics at every single school at every age. It starts from 5 and it goes to 18. And I try and make it age appropriate. But every single one of those schools has got a school council. They have elections. I go in there and I talk to them about elections and it doesn't have to be about political parties. They can stand on different issue tickets. But it's really important that actually we've got a school, so it's not just the teachers and the head, but that you've got a local education authority that's really supportive of it, and that you learn from other schools as well.
But then without academies, that's not going to happen because the local authority doesn't have much influence anymore.
No, but in those areas, well, we've got a lot of our schools that are still under local education authority control, and being a Labour MP, that's what I support. But it can be made relevant, and I think your point about local councillors is really important, because what we do is in each of the schools where I go in, I take the local councillors with me so that they understand that that what I do down in Parliament is one thing, but what the local councillors do is actually a lot more relevant to a lot of the issues that are raised there. But I think it's really about local politicians, and that's local government as well as MPs, being really proactive and going into schools and seeing it as relevant to talk to 5-year-olds about Parliament. I mean, it tends to be about when I know Ben 10 aliens, but
Natasha is absolutely right about all school councils and all of that. I don't have the experience of a rural place, but I thought the most interesting thing you said was about education being done to people. Because I think that's actually a really, really profound thing. It's much broader than just in this area, and it is a huge problem, and I think it transcends actually any of the discussions we actually have about education. What is the purpose of it? How are we trying to do it? So school councils are great, but some of them are a bit tokenish. And some of them are actually, there's a couple of schools in Cambridge that do this, really quite good at engaging with children. Say, look, what should we do? How are we going to plan some things? Not just get on with it, complete carte blanche, that wouldn't work. There's some really interesting things there. Part of it relates to the fundamental question, which nobody really talks about enough, which is what is the point of education? Is it about preparing you to work? Is it about learning a fact base? My view is it's empowering people to be who they can be. And that means giving them quite lots of involvement in what that looks like. That will be different for different people. Some schools do try to edge towards that. I don't think it's actually related to academies versus non-academies. There are good examples, bad examples of each. But that point about education being done to people, I think, is really, really important.
Okay. Should we change the subject? Anyone want to change the subject? Yes. Look at that. We've got a lot of time left, so I'm going to ask everybody to be brief.
This is a question particularly relevant to Dr. Julie. As someone, a cycling enthusiast, someone who's passionate about safeguarding a sustainable future, what do you think should be done to minimize cycling deaths in Central London and to promote cycling for young people? Because if we pass certain countries and nations like the Netherlands, young people and for adults, cycling is the #1 factor of transport, where serious road reliant on the boost.
Okay, let's broaden it beyond London, shall we? I mean, there have been 6 deaths in the last